Mayor, members of the council, my name is Ken Crane. I'm an almost 25-year veteran of the Phoenix Police Department, actively serving, and I also do double duty as the Vice President of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. As you know, in this career field, we are very uniquely situated. We have a lot of officers that, in this career, have paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I want to take a few minutes to share with you just a couple of those guys. On April 22nd, 1975, Phoenix police officer Art Delgado Jr. was killed in an automobile collision while in pursuit of an impaired and reckless driver. Officer Delgado's car collided with another police vehicle and careened into a house in the area of 10th Street and Rose Lane. His death was instrumental in persuading the state legislature to enact the unlawful flight statute. He was 26 years old and had been an officer for only 9 months when he was killed. He was survived by a wife who was pregnant at the time. On May 7th, 1977, Phoenix Police Sergeant David Marty Kiefer, number 2014, was seriously injured in a traffic collision when a drunk driver struck his car at 16th Street and McDowell Road. As a result of his injury, Sergeant Kiefer was rendered a quadriplegic. He continued to work for the department until retiring on September 13, 1991. On May 21st, 1997, he died after succumbing to the injuries he had received 20 years earlier. Sergeant Kiefer was 53 years old and was survived by his wife and children. On August 28, 2004, Phoenix police officers Eric White, number 7275, and Phoenix police officer Jason Wolf, number 7215, responded to a call of a shooting at 1905 West Las Palmeritas Drive. After evacuating surrounding apartments, officers attempted to make contact with the suspect, and as the officers forced entry into the apartment, they were immediately met by gunfire. Both officers White and Wolf sustained fatal gunshot wounds. Officer White was 30 years old and had been on the department for 4.5 years, and he was survived by his wife and 2 children. Officer Wolf was 27 years old and had been on the department for 4.5 years. He was survived by his wife and 2 sons. These are just 3. You're going to hear about a lot more of these as the night goes on. What I'd like to say is that, in addition to this, is that the city seems to be fond at times of lumping all city employees into the same basket when it's convenient. And that seems to happen a lot at contract time. But I'm here to tell you, cops are a unique breed of cat. We are uniquely situated in what we do, what we're expected to do. I once had a sergeant when I was a rookie officer tell me, you know what, Ken? We don't get paid for what we do. We get paid for what we might have to do. Now it's a true statement. We have extremely rigid hiring standards. We can fill Civic Plaza up with 1,000 people, and we might be lucky at the end of an extremely long 5-step process to get 100 viable candidates out of that group of 1,000. And then even after going through the academy, field training officer program, and seeing who makes a year's worth of probation, it could be even probably realistically a lot lower than that, maybe 50 good candidates out of 1,000. We expect certain unique things from police officers, our men and women who serve. You know what was interesting tonight is we're filling up here and everybody's coming in, and I had a book with about 37 of these pages. And I was running around trying to get people to sign up to get up there and speak. And I don't mean this as a slight to any of our officers, but you know, public speaking can be intimidating. And it's amazing how many folks are like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up there. But you know what? You know what's unique? If gunshots went off right now outside, this room would empty out and they would all run to that gunfight without a moment's hesitation. Okay? That's why we're unique. We're hardwired a certain way, and guys like us aren't just falling off the trees out there. Okay? That's just the plain, simple facts. Everybody in here would run to the gunfight just like that without even thinking about it. And they would step into the gap to protect you, and they would give their life if that's what it took. I don't want to beat up everything that Will said, but I just want to, and I'll close up my remarks, so I know a lot of people want to speak here. But I just want to close up by reiterating a point that Will made, and the point is this. you know, you folks need to respect the same process that you asked us to respect a couple years back. You know, 2 contracts ago, we got cuts. The whole city got cuts, and we all stepped up to the plate because we all wanted to be team players. You know, we don't want to act like a bunch of spoiled little kids. No, you know, we shouldn't take cuts. We all ponied up and took cuts. Temporary cuts that were supposed to be restored the next contract cycle. Well, the next contract cycle came, and they said, no, we can only give you half those cuts back. Well, we took it to arbitration, okay? Arbitrator ruled against us. You know what? We respected the process, okay? We didn't stamp our feet and have a hissy fit and you know, jump all over the room. We respected the process. We didn't like it, but we respected it. Now it would seem the shoe's on the other foot, and now that an arbitrator has ruled in our favor, it would seem that the city is balking now at respecting the process. I would respectfully ask all of you to respect the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ken. Paul Barnes is next, and looks like he's got a couple cards donating his time to him. So, Paul, you can have 6 minutes or so if you need it, and then after that will be President Sean Matson, followed by Barb Heller.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I fully support PLEA's position. I just find it astounding that the city would go through a process like fact-finding when it doesn't come out the way they would like it, that they then seek to abandon it. That makes absolutely no sense. There's no question we're in a financial bind. $37.9 million is not insignificant, but it's not the employees' fault. And you shouldn't try to balance the budget on the employees by discounting their services, by forcing them and coercing them into taking pay counts. That's just not right. You know, the people really at fault, frankly, and I'm excluding the newest members of the City Council, are the mayor and the City Council. You wouldn't listen to some of the citizens, and myself included, when we said that a 7% increase in revenues is not going to happen. It's not going to happen, and it didn't happen. And we also urged, and were ignored, that you don't prematurely cut that food tax. Both of those have subsequently been proven to be mistakes. And now we find ourselves in this hole. And even stranger, at least stranger to me, is that the City Council had an opportunity to try to dig a little way out of this by at least putting an extension of the food tax on this list of items that came up before the City Council on the 16th of the month so that the citizens could further comment on it. Yet you excluded it. And because you excluded it, you have put us all in a box that you're trying to get out by balancing this on the backs of the employees. That just makes no sense. And I'd like to read something from yesterday's paper. If the unions refuse to accept a deal, it will put the council in a precarious political situation. He has urged union leaders to return to the negotiating table, saying a political bloodbath could ensue if council members are forced to impose a contract. How lame is that? How lame is that? You're basically saying, hey, labor, you got to dig us out of a bad political situation that we put ourselves into because we made bad decisions. I can't support that. If you want to see a political bloodbath, just keep going the way we're going, and you will see a political bloodbath. And this isn't right. These employees, whether we're talking about PLEA or the other employees, they deserve better. We deserve better by getting services from these people that are loyal and doing the very best possible job they can. I ask you now to try to do the best possible job you can and not continue going in the direction you're going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Sean Matson, President Sean Matson is next. You have a couple individuals donating time, so take a 6 minutes or so. If you need longer, that's okay. And then Barb Heller will be next, followed by Gail Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Man, am I glad I didn't have to follow Will. And that is just a small sample, just so that everybody knows of all the hard work, the sweat that he's put into this contract up to this point. So he fights hard. He fights hard for the folks that fight for the community. So Will did an awesome job. Don't cut into my time. Don't cut into my time. Although what I'm about to speak on is regarding number 27, I just like it noted that it is 24 through 27. I didn't want to waste the council's time speaking multiple times because it pretty much encompasses all the employee groups, although I stand closest to this employee group because I am another one of those representatives that would run to the sound of the gunfire as everybody else runs away. My name is Sean Matson. As you said, I'm the president of the Phoenix Police Sergeants and Lieutenants Association. I stand before you today not only as representation from my association of our 400 members, but also to serve as an echo of the hundreds of citizens, taxpayers, and voters who spoke up at the 20 budget meetings. Time and time again, at those meetings, residents of Phoenix stood up and requested, politely yet passionately, that the city of Phoenix not sacrifice the services that their families rely on each and every day. They asked that our city support not only men and women of public safety, but that we support the more than 15,000 workers who proudly serve this city. These citizens said, if necessary, they would gladly pay more to keep the services in place, to ensure that the city employees are compensated fairly for their hard work and dedication. You were at those meetings too. You heard that many ideas for increased revenues those citizens suggested. Most of those ideas made it into the city manager's amended budget report as talking points for increased revenue. Today is the day when we begin to see if that input will truly matter, if we listen to what the citizens of Phoenix have said. The citizens requested that we maintain service levels and restore salary cuts of years past. How will you, the city council, respond? Once again, our city finds itself at a difficult crossroads. A half a decade ago, the budget deficit was $277 million. But the city workers stepped up and sacrificed compensation cuts of 3.2%. In return, we were promised the restoration of those cuts within 2 years. We are still waiting. Coincidentally, 3.2% when it was $277 million deficit, now it's a $40 million deficit, and they're asking us to take a 4.1%. Can't do that math, I'm sorry. Instead, we agreed to the continuation of a 1.6% cut, something that we did with some hesitation because of what it meant to our families and our children. We didn't stop there, though. City employees, as was indicated earlier today, have identified $100 million in efficiency savings through the council-initiated Councilman Gates sits on it. The council-initiated Employee Innovation and Efficiency Task Force. Those savings were an achievement credited to our previous city manager, but we all now know the truth. In the Phoenix Police Department, we have worked hard to slash overtime by more than 50%, as Will showed. A reduction that further reduces employees' compensation beyond the impact of our paychecks. These cuts have had a substantial impact on public safety and on service to the community. While those overtime hours came at a cost to our families through missed recitals and graduations, missed dinners and Little League games, those hours made our neighborhoods safer. Now the community goes without those hours, those overtime hours that we've slashed. Our department has also done without when it comes to manpower in a huge way. We are down 500 police officers, as has been said earlier. That 500 men and women that could be patrolling our streets and keeping our residents safe. That's 20,000 hours of police man-hours that the community no longer has. 20,000 hours. A week, 20,000 hours. A week that the community no longer has. Will kind of alluded to it a little bit too. Our patrol officers that patrol the street, are forced to take holidays off. Those times when we're the busiest, we're being forced to take off. James Smith, who's a sergeant in the audience right now, he reported, and he was in charge of half of Maryvale Precinct, and he came to work one day with 2 cops in briefing. 2 cops to take care of half of Maryvale Precinct. What kind of city will we have when this is all over? Will it be a city that faces continued service cuts and even steeper cuts to employees' pay and manpower? Or will it be a world-class city that brings in enough revenue to support the community centers, the libraries, the streets, the pools, the safe drinking water, and the levels of public safety that our citizens deserve? Frankly, I don't envy your position right now. When the motions are made and the political chatter begins, there will be no doubt, there will no doubt be a push to do what's politically easy, but not ultimately what's right for our city. Doing what's right is what's difficult. It takes courage. It will not be easy to stand up and say, we cannot have the Phoenix we want unless we commit to paying for it. I think the question needs to be asked, will increased revenue fix this? I haven't heard anybody ask that in a public setting yet. I'm asking that. Will the increased revenue fix this? I believe it will. I'm going to my members right now, and we're still at the table, but just so you guys know, and I'm here in support of the groups that are at this point. We aren't there yet. But I'm asking my members which cut they want, A, B, or C. How unfair is that? How unfair is that because every 2 years we promise to give it back to them? I think there should be a proposal from the city manager to city council. Which sources of revenue do you guys prefer more, A, B, or C? Because the citizens have asked for it, and it's time to respond. That is the decision you face, and I know it's a tough one. I respectfully ask you to keep intact the services our residents demand and restore concessions to our employees. We can't afford to do without much longer. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, President Matson. And then next will be Barb Heller. Some time has been donated to you, so if you need additional time, that's fine. Gail Morgan, did you wish to testify? I wasn't sure if you were donated time or not. If you wish to testify, please come forward, sit in one of these chairs with the up front here, followed by Monica Pimentel. Ms. Heller.
Thank you. Barb Heller, just a citizen. How much is enough? Phoenix officers have sacrificed for the last 4 years. They have given the city over $217 million in concessions and cost savings. And now you say that's not enough. The city has experienced significant revenue growth this fiscal year and is predicting the largest increase in revenue for fiscal year 2014-15. In our water bill in January, you said the city was doing well financially. Now, all of a sudden, as it seems you always do, you're crying poverty. Yet, for the last 5 fiscal years, the general fund ends up with a surplus. In fact, the city has consistently shown between $30 million and $70 million surplus in the general fund. At the conclusion of fiscal year ending 6/2013, the contingency fund balance was $62,741,000. Where are your priorities? Leaving 500 sworn police officer positions vacant, but at the same time funding $650,000 garbage study. Phoenix officers have sacrificed concession upon concessions. They are severely understaffed, doing more work with 500 less officers. They still face severe decreases in overtime and holiday pay. And 38 have tragically paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives. Have you already forgotten John Hobbs and Darrell Rates? Are these concessions worth even one of these lives? These sacrifices seem to be overlooked when you treat them like any other group. The longer you put off hiring more officers, the more of these outstanding officers will be killed. I feel the fact-finding decision is reasonable and well thought out, and I beg you to respect the process, just as PLEA did 2 years ago. Fulfill your promises. Restore our officers the prior cuts as you promised them. Be fair to the ones we still have. In all the meetings I attended, it seems you really didn't hear what the people told you. For above all else, I heard a very loud, clear, repeated, no cuts to police, central booking, choppers, fire inspections. Why? We all know that when we make that call for help, that you guys will be like Hillary Clinton. You won't even answer the phone. Instead, it will be our caring officers who will flat out take a bullet to protect us. That is priceless. I say 217 million in sacrifices already is way too much. Thank you.
Mayor, just a point of, may I,
Take whatever.
yeah, I forgot your name, ma'am, what was it? Barb? I'm Sal, hello. Just so that you know, because you're talking about is the prioritization again, and there are a couple more things too that I want to bring up that Councilman Waring's brought up in the past. This council, the mayor and council, votes for these associations. I think it's over $1 million a year. How much is it, Jim? It's almost $2 million a year in all these different associations, which could hire probably anywhere between 15 and 20 officers, just like that. Just like that, that could be hired. The city of Phoenix spends how much in just lobbying alone? Almost a couple million. Well, actually more than that, isn't it? It's like 2.9 or something. I mean, just lobbying. Think about it. That's how much the city spends, and doesn't even think twice about that. And there's no plan in place to hire another officer. Just think if you even just cut all those, just 50%. Could we do less associations? I would think we probably could. You know, could we do less in lobbying? Yeah, we've got a huge staff that's out there lobbying. We don't seem to be winning a whole lot, but you know, 50% of that could hire more officers. It's just a reappropriation of what we already have right now, refocus on those areas that we need to get accomplished now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Gail Morgan, did you wish to provide testimony? I think she may have had, and I think she may have donated time as well. I think it was in a paperclip one. Monica Pimentel, did you wish to testify? Please come forward, followed by Jesse Jimenez, followed by Frank Smith.
Hello, City Council and Mayor. My name is Monica Pimentel. I'm here speaking for items 24 and 27. I am a member of the law enforcement community, so I am here supporting my brothers and sisters of PLEA and the Phoenix Police Department. My husband is a member of AFSCME, and I spoke with a couple of you last week. Interestingly enough, Councilman DeCiccio, you said that on 422 that there was less than 10% that supported the food tax at the meeting. I don't know how many people did. I was there. I did support it. It was actually my husband's birthday, and my son and I were there, so I am in support of the food tax. One of the things that I'd like to say to everybody, please look around the room. You'll see people with their children, their wives, the families. You're not just asking you're not asking these officers and the AFSCME members, the other union members, to do this on their backs. You're asking it of the little 4-year-old girl over here. You're asking it of the first speaker's 6-year-old son. And they just left. They've been sitting here as long as I have, since 2:30, and those children were sleepy. And God love them, they were so well behaved. So look at the families. Consider what they're going through. Concessions, we need to find revenue here. And I said last week, if we don't find revenue now, if we don't stop making cuts, we're gonna be here in the same predicament in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And hey, our shoulders are only so wide, we can't take everything. I have a budget to take care of in my home. If I can't do that, I can't go to somebody else and say, hey, you know what? I need you to stop this. I need some of your money instead, so you need to make a cut so that I can balance my budget. And lastly, let's do some real negotiating. Let's get everybody what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pimentel. Jesse Jimenez, do you wish to provide testimony? And then followed up by Frank Smith, followed by Joe Mora.
Good evening. On May 4th, 1984, Phoenix Police Officer Robert L. Pimentel, badge number 3549, was killed when his police motorcycle collided with a van at 3700 East Thomas Road. Officer Pimentel was 37 years old and had been a police officer for 15 years, 5 of which were with Phoenix. He is survived by his wife and 3 children, including his daughter, Charmaine, who would later join the Phoenix Police Department. On April 24th, 1984, Phoenix Police Officer Earl Rusty Hawkins, badge number 2417, was struck and killed by a passing vehicle on the I-17 frontage road 1/2 mile north of Happy Valley Road. Officer Hawkins, who was on foot, was conducting a nighttime undercover assignment at the time. During his career, Officer Hawkins helped establish a hostage/barricade negotiations unit and was a negotiator in hostage situations. Officer Hawkins was 34 years old and had been an officer for 12 years. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. My name is Jesse Jimenez. I'm here as a member of the Arizona Probation Officers Association in support of PLEA. I am a resident of District 5. I'm a longtime resident of Phoenix. I have a lot of family who not only live in Phoenix, but some of whom have been employed by the city of Phoenix, and I ask you to support the officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Frank Smith is next, then Joe Mora, then Earl Fisher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm Frank Smith, and I'm proud to say that I'm a police officer with the City of Phoenix for 25 years. It's been my honor and privilege to be employed by the City of Phoenix and be a member of the department. As you have heard earlier, we honored 38 fallen officers a little bit earlier this evening, and I want to share with you as far as 3 of those officers and a little about them. On November 22nd, 1971, Phoenix police officer Quincy Clay Haywood, badge number 1451, was killed when a truck pulled in front of his police motorcycle at 12th Street in McDowell. Although responding officers immediately transported Officer Haywood to a local hospital, he succumbed to his injuries. He was 29 years old and had been on the department for 4 years. He is survived by his wife and 2 sons. On November 2nd, 1973, Phoenix police officer Michael D. Helmschmeyer, badge number 1845, was killed as a result of a traffic collision at 3000 South 19th Avenue. Officer Helmschmeyer was responding to another officer's call for assistance. A car that had been pulled over for the officer's emergency lights subsequently was struck by a garbage truck. The force of the collision sent the vehicle into the path of the approaching patrol car, killing Officer Helmschmeyer. He was 32 years old and served the department for 4 years. On June the 20th, 1990, Phoenix police officer Patrick O. Briggs, badge number 4317, was killed when a motorist pulled in front of him as he was pursuing speeding motorist on his motorcycle. Officer Briggs swerved to avoid the collision, struck a raised median and tree on 7th Street just north of Thunderbird Road. Officer Briggs was 27 years old and had been an officer for 7 years. He is survived by his parents. Thank you.
Mr. Mora, do you wish to provide testimony? Thank you for being here. Followed by Earl Fisher and then Larry Sheets.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Joe Mora. I'm a board member of the United Neighbors Association, a neighborhood association that has served our Phoenix Westside community for 22 years. As a board member, I also serve on the site council for Palo Verde Middle School. I also am the Phoenix Neighborhood Patrol Coordinator for our 4 quadrants. Last Saturday, I had the privilege to attend the Phoenix Neighborhood Patrol Appreciation Banquet, where PNP and the City of Phoenix Police Department together celebrated 20 years of partnering between its officers and the Phoenix citizenry. It is these proactive, cooperative programs that have helped to keep our neighborhoods safe by its focus to proactively ward off crime. Our concerns for our neighborhood association is we are seeing more and more the lack of seeing our officers in our community action officers, special project officers, PNP coordination officers. We're seeing them more taken from proactive crime prevention to more reactive crime prevention. They're being put more and more in the field, having to ward off crime after the fact. In my opinion, that's not a good way of fighting crime, and more through our budget cuts, we are forced more and more to take this kind of action. It is the Councilman DeCiccio, I disagree with your statement that the citizenry of Phoenix would not choose a 1% sales tax if they knew what is at stake here, and that is public safety, or we would lose a couple of precincts. I'm sure that we would choose a temporary 1% sales tax. On behalf of the Phoenix Neighborhood Association, we urge the council. We made a mistake. We understand that. Don't make a greater mistake. Let's solve this problem the quickest way we can. Let's get back on the track. I don't mind paying you what I pay you. I pay you to take care of them. Please take care of them because they will take care of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mora. Next speaker will be Earl Fisher, then Mr. Larry Sheets, followed by Patrick Garcia. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. On a positive note, I want to get started by thanking the City of Phoenix for not only giving me a job, but providing me the opportunity for a fantastic career as a City of Phoenix police officer. I could go on and on about myself, but I've been threatened, I better not. So, but I do want to tell you about a dear friend of mine, a co-worker, a former Marine and Vietnam veteran, Officer John Robertson, serial number 3127, was a patrol officer out of Maryville, a job that he loved and was totally dedicated to. On November 17th, 1984, John was at 1624 North Black Canyon Highway, which is what was then the Sixpence Inn, when he spotted 3 subjects that, because of his experience and his knowledge, knew that they, number 1, had been trespassed from the property of the hotel, and number 2, were involved in prostitution. So he makes a stop to find out why they're continuing to break these misdemeanor laws. Unfortunately, while John was investigating what they were doing, 2 of our out-of-state visitors came out of their room and yelled to John that they had just been the victims of armed robbery and the 3 people he was with committed that armed robbery. Before John had a chance to turn this misdemeanor incident into a felony, a violent felony, the male member of the 3 pulled a .357, shot John in the head, and killed him. John was 31 years old, a member of the Phoenix Police Department for 8 years. John left behind his wife and 2 very small children, the oldest of which I spoke to a few years ago and admitted that he has no recollection of his father, but he does remember the funeral. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fisher. Larry Sheets, you're next, followed by Patrick Garcia, and then Michael Pablos.
And then came back and worked with the lab enhancement team doing cold cases and then cold case homicide as volunteer. So I tried to put some time in to help the city, and I felt like I had to come up here and do this tonight because these 2 officers worked out of the 13th Street and Washington Motor detail where I worked. December 28th, 1970. Phoenix police officer Al Bloom, excuse me, number 947, was shot and killed after stopping a stolen truck behind the Valley High Motel, 16th Avenue, just off of Grand Avenue. Al didn't even have a chance because when he was pulling the suspect vehicle over, the suspect in the vehicle, not the driver, but there was a suspect in the back of the vehicle, had a camper on it, opened the back door and shot Al before he could even dismount. And so Officer Bloom came out with his 1033-999. That was his last words. Excuse me. A citizen did take up the radio and called in the information. As a result, Phoenix Police Officer Dale Stone, number 1697, was one of the responding officers. He was killed at 7th Avenue and Roosevelt when an impaired driver struck his police motorcycle, throwing him under another vehicle. Officer Bloom was 40 years old, been on the department for 8 years. He was survived by his 17-year-old son. Officer Stone was 25 years old and has been in the department with for 14 months, survived by his wife. And Officer Stone also had a father who was an MCSO deputy sheriff who was killed shortly after. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheets. Next speaker will be Patrick Garcia, followed by Michael Pablos, followed by Diane Harris.
How you doing? There's so many avenues I can take on this. I'm an employee of the City of Phoenix, PD. I've been here for almost 24 years. Took this job many years ago from a good job because of some of the packages that were presented then. The pay, the benefits, everything that drew me into this. And so did a lot of my constituents. They were talking about fallen officers. So I'm going to tell you about some officers that aren't on that list, but one of my good friends, Jeff Dower, who had his leg blown off on a traffic stop. Officer Tim Bush, they used to call him Pac-Man out on the street because he was such a good worker. He was injured on duty, took his own life because of his injuries. Those are some of the people that you don't hear about. And, you know, I can't see how the city is in such dire turmoil. You know, the city manager just got a new assistant. to help dig him out of a hole or to try and find the problems. And, you know, I'm not a mathematician, but the last time I talked to somebody from fiscal, I think there was only 2,350 officers. And, you know, we're down about 540 officers, roughly. And so he's getting somebody to hired to come bail him out. Where are the officers that, you know, that are going to try and bail me out of a situation? I've tried to do as much as I could to the city and change the face of some of the problems. The city isn't what it used to be as far as crime, and it's because of people in here. You know, I've had bullets fly over my head on several occasions. And I guess that's about it. I heard the bell, so thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Next will be Michael Pablos, followed by Diane Harris, and then Eric Reid. I had Michael Pablos, is that right? Yeah, please. Yeah, come forward.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members. This week, Arizona Republic, Glendale Mayor admitted that they made a mistake 3 years ago when they laid off 33 city employees, lowered their wages, lowered the benefits. They stated we have a revolving door of employees. We cannot operate our city this way, and now we're going to give our employees raises and increase their benefits. That's what they're going to do, and they admitted they made the mistake that you all are getting about to do. That's that. I was late today because I work at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. I'm a building maintenance worker. We had brown water coming through every faucet, every toilet, every urinal, and we had to flush the system all throughout the day. That's why I was late today. That's what we do. We serve our customers and keeping them safe. We're all in this together. I support police 100%. But once again, these lights, the electrical department takes care of that. These cameras and everything, the audio people, camera people take care of that. Building maintenance takes care of everything in here. These officers cannot respond without wheels, their cars starting, the fire trucks, all that. Keep in mind, it takes every single one of us to make this city operate. Budget meetings, you've had all these budget meetings, and I hope this is not a dog and pony show, because the citizens have spoke loud and clear. Sal, I commend you. You were successful on ending the food tax. The mayor kept his campaign promise, he ended it. But now we have a problem, and the citizens have spoke overwhelmingly, reinstated new revenue, no cuts. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pablos. Diane Harris will be next, and then Eric Reid, excuse me, followed by.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know it's been a long night. I've lived in Phoenix for 42 years, and I've owned my house for 28 years. I can't believe only 2 more years to go. I've been in the same district for 28 years, District 5. I've always tried to intelligently vote and keep abreast of the issues in the city and the county and the state and federally. It wasn't until about 15 years ago that I started really paying attention to my neighborhood. And I started coming to budget hearings. I started coming to council meetings to try and understand the zoning process and hopefully make my neighborhood better from certain aspects. What strikes me today is that in 2000, I think, was the first time I ever went to a budget hearing. And the same thing strikes me now as struck me then. And that's when money was flowing like water. Correct me if I'm wrong. Literally, it was good times. Into the 90s, right at the beginning of 2000, money was flowing like water. Council and mayor were having budget hearings then, asking cuts, asking us as residents to say what program we were going to have and what program we weren't going to have. My grandmother always said, before it became popular, stop doing the things all the same, you will just make yourself crazy. It's a different version of that popular phrase. I think there's some type of systemic breakdown, and this manifestation of what we've all been talking about tonight is the top level of that. There's something way beneath it that maybe we are seeing, maybe we're not seeing. I would challenge each one of you to look at the systemic process on every level of what you do as council and mayor and creatively address changing some things to see if that will keep us from having to come here again or do more budget hearings next year where it's just pitting one program against another, cut, cut, cut. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. Eric Reid will be next, and you have a few people donated time to you, so up to 6 minutes. I don't know if Richard Ray, he testified earlier, I think he may have had to go, but then I'll have Mr. Pat Vent, you'll be after Eric. Good to see you.
Actually, my name's Eric Rudy.
Thank
I've been a police officer with the City of Phoenix for 13 years. And today's shift, I didn't get to eat breakfast or have a lunch break for a meal, but this is so important to be here and have this opportunity to speak. We have been whittled down to a 7-man squad. Day shift, South Mountain Precinct is where I work. It was a busy day. And then I had to go to court at 1:30, and my beat went uncovered. I end up meeting some other officers here from our neighboring squads in our precinct, waiting outside to get in here. And they jokingly tell me that they had to sign on as one of the call signs for my squad because they were in my beat, in our squad area so often this afternoon. The staffing's gotten to the point that I can't even go to court without officers having to scramble from 2 other squad areas to make backups for my squad mates. Since the pay cut that myself and fellow officers took in 2010, I don't think I have ever worked so hard as I have in the past 4 years, so much more so than the first 9 years of my career. We've been doing more with less. The workload has increased. Will Buvadas, who's been negotiating on our behalf, isn't doing this in a bubble or a vacuum. During the injunction period with the Goldwater Institute, Will was assigned to my squad. He rode on our squad. He was assigned a beat. So he isn't getting things second and third hand from what officers back here are telling him. He saw and experienced the workload and the sacrifices that we're making on a daily basis. So he is negotiating from a position of personal firsthand experience and knowledge. In the past 4 years since the pay cut, we have seen, whether it's been perception or reality, we have seen some wasteful spending. Talk about garbage studies, fancy signage going up, Centennial Way signs went up on Washington. I remember that after we took the pay cut. Talk about doggy parks, park renovations. You know, some of these things are nice things, but public safety should always be a top priority. And we've been talking about priorities. I think you can sum up that this isn't a budget crisis, this is a priority crisis that the city of Phoenix is experiencing right now. And unfortunately, me and fellow officers behind me have borne the brunt of it. While we took a pay cut, we've been working harder and doing more with less. If you give us another pay cut now, it is a slap in the face because we've been working that much harder for the pay that we take home right now. I think if you do this, officers who are close to their 20 or who already have their 20 years and then some in, if you cut us again, I think you're going to see officers out at 20 or even shortly after this decision is handed down are going to say the heck with this and retire, and it's only going to exacerbate our manpower problems and the workload on the individual officers who are left behind. So I highly encourage you to please do the right thing. Don't give us another slap in the face. Show us that our hard work and sacrifice isn't in vain. Thank you.